Hello, welcome back to Cycle Fab. I'm Larry. In today's video, I will be showing you how I change spark plugs on my 2004 Honda CRV. Now, these are a little bit different. Most of the engines I've ever worked on, like tractors and lawnmowers and just standard American V8s and 4-cylinders, I've never used a so-called spark plug socket. I've just never had any reason to. I just used a regular 5/8 inch deep socket. Well, this one I will have to use a spark plug socket, all right? And also a regular deep socket. I'll show you the reason why once I get into it. Now, what you also will need is an 8-inch extension, a ratchet, possibly a 10mm wrench. I'll also get into that with you when I go to change the spark plugs, and a 10mm socket, and torque wrench. And something else that I always use on spark plugs is anti-seize. Whether it's aluminum head or not, I always use anti-seize on spark plug threads. Just trust me on this one, okay? And of course, the spark plugs themselves. I use these right here, NGK Iridiums. They last longer and they're better suited for using in an aluminum head. They say that you do not need to use anti-seize on these, but just trust me, use anti-seize on any spark plug that you screw into a head, period. All right. You don't want to have galded threads in a head at all. It's a pain in the ass to fix. Just trust me, use anti-seize. Now, the spark plugs cost me $32.95 from Amazon. The link will be down in the description below if you want to use those. Most people use Autolites because they're cheaper. Then they work fine, really. These are supposedly better suited for anti-galding, but I use anti-seize on them anyway, so you know, I don't really worry about that. They are a better constructed plug, in my opinion, and also a lot of other people's opinion. Hey guys, a quick side note on a couple of items here. First off, you need to change your spark plugs, at least on this vehicle, every 30,000 miles. If you don't do that, you will get severe erosion eventually on your spark plugs. Now, here is an example. This is a prime example of leaving your spark plugs in too long. I do not know when these spark plugs were changed last, but I do know that these are not the factory plugs. You can see here the NGK, the new ones that I'm fixing to put in, are set at 44 thousandths. The AC Delco is twice that. They have eroded down to 85 thousandths. 88 would actually be twice, but anyway, 85 is close enough. That's horrible. That tear up your fuel mileage, among other things, I'm sure. Now, the other thing is these come pre-gapped, as do most spark plugs do. I check mine. I make sure that they're gapped the way they're supposed to be gapped, all right? They're to spec, because you don't know what happens with these spark plugs from the time that they're made to the time that you get them. They could have been dropped. Something could have happened to knock the gap out. So anyway, check the gap on your spark plugs before you go ahead and install them. If you guys are liking this video, then please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and go ahead and hit that notification bell too, so you know when my next video is coming out. Okay guys, this is very straightforward. It's actually not that hard to do. You have 4 10mm bolts right here, and that's what we're going to take off first. This is the cover for the spark plugs themselves, and also the coil packs. Now be careful when you're taking these off, because these two right here are connected to the studs that hold 2 of the coil packs on. This is the reason why I said that you will maybe need a 10mm box end open end wrench. So let's get into this. Now, of course, you want to be careful not to drop these guys, because they will fall back behind the engine. Then you got to go hunt for them, and that will be a real pain. At least it's always been my experience. They never fall where you can find them easily. All right. Okay, the studs didn't come out with this one, but I'll show you what I'm talking about. Just lift this up. There you go. Now I already have one of the coil packs out and the spark plug. This is the one that I was demonstrating in the shop when I was showing the spark plug gap and the excessiveness of it from the spark plug that I pulled out. Now I want to go ahead and do this one. I want to pull this stud out right here. I have to anyway to get the coil pack out and show you what I was talking about as far as using the 10mm wrench that you may or may not need. But yeah, see right there, and what happens is the nut and the stud will be so tight that when you unscrew the nut itself, the stud comes out. And all you need to do is put a box-end wrench on this end and the socket on this side and just, you know, take it out. All right, now with that out of the way and explained, let's go ahead and get into taking the coil pack out. Now I suggest that you do one of these at a time. Like I said, I already have one pulled out. You don't want to drop debris down in here, which I'm going to be very careful not to. A good idea is to blow everything out before you start this process. Now I've already done that. So let's go ahead and start with the one on my right. Now the retaining screw is already out, that stud that I was telling you about. So you just want to pull up on this just a little bit and unplug the coil pack right here. And all you do, there's a tab, you depress it and just wiggle this guy right off. Just like that. And just pull this straight out. Now I want to go ahead and do this one and also this one at a time, which I suggest you doing that. It just saves a headache of dropping anything down inside these holes, which would be horrendous. It'd be a pain in the butt to get it out, and if you drop something down inside on top of the piston, that would be devastating. Okay, I've got my NGK plugs right here. Now I already have these coated with anti-seize on the threads. Again, NGK says you do not have to do that, but I do it with all spark plugs, whether it's on a cast iron head or aluminum head. I just use it. It's a fail-safe for me. I feel better about using it. Now, when you go to install these, I said earlier in the video, I have to use a spark plug wrench with these. Of course, we got to get the old one out before we put the new one in. So let's do that. Now, if any of you are wondering what a spark plug socket is or what makes it so different, there's a, let's see if I can get it. Okay, there you go. You can see it just barely down in there. If I can get it to focus. There's a piece of rubber down in there. And what that does is that grabs a hold of the top of the spark plug right here so you can extract the thing. And it's a pretty firm grip. And also you'll need this to reinstall these. And something else too, if you use anti-seize, if you decide to use it, be sure and have a rag, because this stuff, once it gets on you, it does not wipe off easily. And it will get on your clothes, on your face, everywhere. Now this one's in there pretty tight. A little too tight. Now the original plugs the plugs that I pulled out of here beforehand, they did not use anti-seize on it. And I hope I do not have a problem with galding. If I do, well, that'll probably be the end of this video and the beginning of another one. All right, it seems to be coming out all right. Yeah, if it galds, you will definitely know it, because it will not come out easy. You won't be able to screw it out by hand either. All right. Yeah, this didn't gald. Everything's fine. See right here. Now the color of this spark plug is a kind of like a melted Hershey's color. That's actually a good color. You want your spark plugs to be that color. You don't want them to be like really, really black or really, really white, from my understanding. Definitely not black, but just kind of a chocolatey, melted Hershey color, from my understanding. Now, okay, I want to go ahead and install the new spark plug in both of these, since I have both of them out, but really just do one at a time. Now, okay, you'll need this spark plug socket to reinstall these partially. And what I mean by that is you just insert the spark plug just enough to where the socket holds on to it. You're not going to screw the spark plug all the way in with this socket. The reason why, if you do that, when you go to pull the socket off of the spark plug, your extension will come out, but your socket will be down inside the head. So, I'll show you what I mean by that. Now, I just have this just lightly in there. And it's just enough to hold the spark plug to where I can get it started. Just like that. Now I'll turn it in there as far as I can by hand till I feel some resistance. Okay. Now I go to the regular deep socket 5/8. And this is just a standard deep socket. There's no rubber grommet to hold the spark plug. In other words, here's the old spark plug right here. It fits down in there, but it also just falls right out. The reason why you can't use a regular deep socket to get these out with is because it doesn't grab a hold of them. It grabs a hold of them enough to unscrew them, but not to pull the things out. So the spark plug would just be left down in there. Okay. Now, I'm just going to get this tight by hand. Firm it up, in other words. Okay, that's all I'm doing right there. Then I'll come back with the torque wrench and torque it to 13 foot-pounds. Now I want to go ahead and do the other one also, since I already have it out. Now I want to swap sockets again. Go back to the spark plug socket with the grommet in it, and put me another spark plug in here. Now again, check the gap on these. Don't rely on the factory that they're pre-gapped and everything's hunky-dory, because they may or may not be. All right, now I put that in there too far and I won't be able to get it out. Let's just barely set it in there. Just enough to where, yeah, it won't fall out by itself. And again, I'm just going to get it started, just like that. Okay, now go back to the standard socket, and I'm just going to firm it up now, just vaguely tight. I like that term, vaguely tight. Now I'm going to go ahead and torque these first two down. My torque wrench is already set on 13 foot-pounds. Now, I don't know if you can see this. This is just a Harbor Freight torque wrench. Some of you may or may not like using Harbor Freight equipment, but I've had good luck with it. Okay, let's go to this one. All right, now I want to reinstall the coil packs back in these same spark plug holes that they came out of. It doesn't make a difference if you swap them back and forth. I'm just very anal about putting things back the way they were. Now, this is the one that came out of this spark plug hole, one of the center ones. Now, you want to plug this back in before you put the coil pack all the way down in there. Just like that. Go ahead and put that in there. Went in very easily. Now, let's go ahead and do the other one. Just like so. I don't know if you guys can see this. These pop on and off fairly easy. Now, you may have a difficult time getting them off, unplugging them, because they've been in there for at least 30,000 miles. This one, these have been in here for only God knows how long. You saw that the spark plug gap on the spark plugs that I pulled out of here were horrible. They were twice what they should have been. Just due to erosion right there. That's on the other one. It was 85 thousandths. It leads me to believe also this one is 85 thousandths, which is about, well, double what the original spark plug gap or the spec spark plug gap should be, which is 44 thousandths. The reason why I'm going to go ahead and film these is in case I do run into one that's galded. That way you guys can see what I'm talking about and see what I will have to deal with after the fact, which I pray to God that I do not have one galled. That is a pain in the butt to fix. They're fixable, but I just don't want to have to deal with it. Again, pull the coil pack out. Okay, now this one popped open very easily. That wasn't near as tight as the other two. Wonder why that is. Probably because when these spark plugs were changed last time, they did not use a torque wrench. They just put them in here by hand. You do not want to over tighten spark plugs. That's why I highly suggest using a torque wrench on it. Well, this is one of the original plugs. Now this one has anti-seize on it. So at one point in time, somebody has taken this out and put anti-seize on it. Maybe it has a Healy coil down in there already. Maybe somebody has stripped the head out on this already. I don't know. I'm not going to go down there and take the head off or anything like that and inspect it. But this plug has been in there for quite a while. You can see right there, that gap is huge. So let's go ahead and put the new spark plug in. And again, just enough to where it holds onto it. Okay, don't push it all the way up in there or you'll end up having to retrieve the socket out of there and it's just a waste of time. Again, tighten it as far as we can by hand, just until it stops. Okay, and retrieve the socket. Get our regular deep socket, our ratchet, and just right there, okay? Now we transfer over to our torque wrench. Okay, it clicked, and that's it. You don't want to double click them. That's what I've been told. I really don't have much experience with using torque wrenches. It's just, that's what I was instructed to do by somebody who does this for a living. My grandfather, who worked for Chrysler for 30 years. All right, now that one's in there and torqued down, so let's go ahead and put the coil pack back in here. Something else, when you're taking all this apart, there are two spacers, metal spacers, one on each side. Don't lose these. Be aware that they're there. This is another cover back here, a secondary cover. You could take that off if you wanted to, but it's not necessary to do that. Actually, I don't think you can take it off because it encapsulates these wires on the other side. So anyway, just don't lose them. It's a good idea to have something to hold your little screws and nuts in. You don't want to lay them out on the fender well or something. You will lose them. All right, that came out okay. The coil pack came out okay. Again, switching over to the spark plug socket with the rubber grommet. Yeah, this one's tight. And it feels a little crunchy, but nah, it's just tight. That's what I'm saying. If you use anti-seize on here, next time you go to change your spark plugs, you won't have an issue with them coming out. They'll just come right out normally the way they're supposed to. That's why I like anti-seize. And like I said, I use it on aluminum heads and also cast iron heads. I mean, why not? The stuff will last. I have a large bottle of it, and I've had that for about 20 years. Now, I'll put a link down below for anti-seize if they sell it on Amazon, which I'm sure they do. They sell everything else on Amazon. I'm an affiliate member with Amazon. I get paid a very small commission, like teeny, on the items that you purchase through my links. It doesn't make the items any more expensive. It just helps me support my channel. Okay, this one, yeah. A nice Hershey color, and of course the gap is massive. About the same, 85 thousandths it looks like. I'm not going to measure each one of these gaps of the old spark plugs that I'm pulling out. I mean, you can visually see that's more than 44 thousandths, a lot more, twice as much. Again, just set the spark plug down inside the spark plug socket, just barely enough to where it holds on to it. Insert the spark plug And again, like I said, all these spark plugs already have anti-seize on them. I wasn't going to show you guys me putting anti-seize on threads. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. You don't want to glob the stuff on there. Just make sure the threads are nicely coated with it. And I used the wrong, I won't be able to get that out, I bet. Nope, see what happens? I wasn't paying attention. The socket is down inside there, so I'm gonna have to pull the whole thing out, spark plug and all, and do this all over again. Now, I'm sure you can buy a better grade of extension that is more resistant to coming out of a socket, but these are just cheapy, again, Harbor Freight probably. I don't remember where I got this one from. Okay, I gotta pull this plug out just, they're pretty firm in there. Okay, just a little bit. Okay, go over to the next socket. The regular socket, regular deep socket. Just firm this up. I've heard you're supposed to reset these every time you use them. In other words, turn them back to zero, the torque wrench, turn the torque wrench back down to zero, reset them. I don't know how much of that is true. Maybe some of you guys who do this for a living down in the comment section can let me know. But anyway, now we're going to torque this down. There we go, 13 foot-pounds. Set that off to the side, put our coil pack back in. I thought something looked odd. This stud goes over here, not in the center. Now, trying to work and talk on camera at the same time sometimes leads to some screw-ups like this. Put this back on there. And these are just little acorn nuts. So you don't have to like really wrench down on these guys. It's just holding a plastic cover on. I think that's the reason why the studs sometimes pop out of these, because people put them on there too tight. And the fact they've been on there for probably 100,000 plus miles. Now, I'm gonna start it up. Okay, it started better than normal. In other words, before I changed the spark plugs out, it would take a little bit, like a millisecond to, or whatever, a little bit longer, half a second, I guess, to crank up, to fire up. This, it just, bam, it was right there, instant. So these spark plugs, I noticed, compared to the ones that were in there, what are they, auto lights, AC Delco. The AC Delcos were a lot shorter, like 1/8 of an inch. And I wasn't sure if I got the right NGK spark plugs or not. So I went back and researched, checked out the stock number on it, the part number of the spark plugs. And yes, the NGKs are for this. The AC Delcos, I didn't even bother checking them. But yeah, they were shorter. I really don't know that much about spark plugs, the way they're designed, or you know what brand is better than the other. But I do know that I've had good luck with NGKs, and a lot of the mechanics in my area that I talk to, they like NGKs also. So take that for what it's worth. I hope you guys got something out of this video. I did. I always feel better about myself when I do my own mechanic work, maintenance work that's not above my head. And that just makes me feel better. So I want to try to start producing a video once every 2 weeks, probably get back to once a week. I don't know about that yet. I'm really busy around here. So I appreciate you guys showing up. I have about 5,300 subscribers now, and I really appreciate you guys for doing that, for subscribing, honestly. And those of you who show up religiously every time I put up a video, thanks guys, very much. Thank you.